Okay, so beginners yoga, we have some classes in studio, some classes online, and it's all so good. And I'm so glad that whatever amount of yoga you've been able to do has come into your life. And how this afternoon will flow is I'm gonna breeze through these 8 limbs, like blinking you'll miss it, okay? And talk just briefly about how they've come into my life as we breeze through them. And then we're going to practice the ones that we can do now, right now, and are the place that most people start, which is posture or asanas. So you'll hear me refer to asanas as what often people call yoga. So when I say yoga, I mean this. Right? And whenever I say asana, I mean posture. I mean the things that we're practicing in our physical body on these interesting rectangles we've made, and sort of what's become thought of as the totality of yoga when people say, oh, I do yoga, or I'm a yoga practitioner. And you are a yoga practitioner when you practice posture, but when yoga comes into your life with all 8 of her big arms and wraps them around you, that's something a little bit different. And so that's the kind of yoga that I'm going to be talking about today. And then when we practice the physical postures, I'll talk a little bit more about how all of these separate limbs put in a list for our convenience, as yoga often does. There's lots of lists in yoga, and the first part of it is kind of just like, all right, I'm learning a lot of lists, but am I changing? Am I feeling better? I don't know. But you learn the lists so that they can get in there and start to work on you and start to be a way that you see life and a way that you integrate and process the happenings of life to, rather than get you down, to make you stronger. So we align ourselves in a certain way so that the shit that happens to us that doesn't stop just because you started doing yoga, sorry, so that it makes us stronger rather than wearing us down, making us jaded. And the way that I think about the life of a yogi is like a scientist, and everything's an experiment. And so when you're first beginning to practice, you have to get a feel for all your different tools, all the different things that people are talking about as yoga, and be open to them and try them and practice them and experience them. But as you do, you also have to cultivate discernment and say, that was cool, but it's not really for me. On to the next yoga, and the next yoga, and the next yoga. Because it's been packaged in many ways, and there's certain ways that it gets packaged that I don't really like, personally. But I find a lot of solace in knowing that yoga herself does not need me to defend her. She just needs me to practice. And so I just talk about my yoga, and that's what I hope for each of you, to get to the point where you understand and know that this is my yoga, this is my particular way of practicing, and building a love for that particular way that you practice. And then every time you do it, you're in love. Hooray! Great. Can have a home base to return to that reminds us of the fullness of life. And we can take our place. You want to come to your place, baby? No? Oh. Rude. Or right on cue. Okay. Any questions about how we're going to flow today? I'm going to have to keep my eye on time because it gets away from me when I talk about this stuff. So, you may have come to this through yoga or posture practice, and that is very common. And if we were to talk about, and I'm being OCD right now, okay. If we were to talk about an overarching word for the yoga that we're all kind of participating in these studios, it would be Hatha yoga. And that actually has sort of a connotation of forcefulness, which is interesting. But we're creating through Hatha yoga a balance of the sun and the moon, which I have one earring in each here. There is a masculine, sun-oriented, action-oriented, heat-building part of us, and there is a feminine, lunar, restorative, receptive part of us. And bringing those two parts of us into balance and aligning our chakras and balancing our nadis is what we're up to. Is no matter what the Hatha yoga you're practicing, it has these sort of foundational goals of helping you align your posture, to have access to all your energy centers, or to be able to move into all of these different parts of yourself. This sort of instinctual self, that's part of the lower energy centers, the emotional self, or that heartfelt being that you are, which is a part of the heart center, and your expressiveness at the throat center, and then the Ajna chakra, or the command center, and your mind, and being able to direct your mind and attention to objects of your choosing, or simply recognizing that you are distracted and being okay with it. So yoga, Hatha yoga, touches on all of these different levels, right? Just breezy over Hatha yoga and what it is that we're up to in the studios. And that has mostly to do with posture and life force awareness, or pranayama. And we'll talk more about that after we do a little bit of it. But I wanted to start there because this is often the touch point that we have for it. We've been like, I need to stretch, and popped down a yoga class, and got some benefit out of it, or else you wouldn't still be here, curious about what's going on with this yoga. So those are a good place to start because, man, aligning your body and feeling comfortable and at ease and relaxed in posture it feels better, I'll say, than being gripped and stooped and holding. So part of what we're trying to learn in our posture practices is how to activate and energize in a wise way, in a way that doesn't use any more energy than necessary. It doesn't grip and hold and try too hard like a try hard. And it doesn't not try at all and drop out and give up and say, fuck it. Right? There's an active energy that's moving through the system that is energized and alive, not too ha and not too ta, but hata. Okay? Posture, asana, aligned action, being embodied, being fully present with your whole body, not disassociating from certain parts of yourself or certain aspects of what it's like to be human. All of it comes and we start to integrate that and align our action in our life. And then the next thing that we practice in these beautiful studios is pranayama. So you'll hear in class, you'll say, okay, we're going to do some pranayama. and then someone starts counting their breath, your breath for you, or they start saying, "Yo, do something like this," or you can wear something like this. Okay, why? Right? Good question. Cool. Because we want to become aware of our breath, become aware of our life force energy, and gain control and access to our respiratory functions in a full way. Not in a way that only breathes X, Y, Z, but in a way that can breathe in any way, because, okay, should have saw that come in. Breathe in, oh, let's see how it done. Good job. The best. So what we could think of pranayama being on a larger scale, other than which is all really good, it gets really, energized and amped up because prana, yeah. So what you're feeling when you're breathing in that way is coming into relationship with life force awareness and realizing that you can bring more into this system, and you can start to learn to recognize and adapt where you're directing your attention. So I've seen people do a lot of pranayama and then have a lot of energy for the same old ways that they fucked up their life before, right? So that we're not doing the more energy just for more energy's sake. We want to have more energy for our aligned action, for the way that we take action from our whole self, from all of the centers moving equally in importance. Not the head first, not the heart first, and certainly not the pelvis first. I won't demo it. You've seen that guy. And you can see, in a way, the energetics of each of those things, right? So someone who is thinking their way through life and trying to put the head before all else, it shows in their posture and in their energy. Someone who is just open-hearted and they just love all of life. They're just going, get up. I don't know where that's coming from. That is overextended in the heart center. You can see that too in their posture. And then somebody who's pelvis first through life, like, that is the pelvis energy moving first. And so our aligned action is about all of that moving together. And then yama-ing, which we'll get to next, our prana. So your prana is your share of all of the life force energy. I could get into the big P prana and the little P prana, which I will, because I said that. So you could think of prana, big P with a capital P, being like all of the life force energy that we can come in contact with. And then the little p is your share of the life force energy that we come in contact with. And so by breathing, inhale, and do it with me. Big inhale, holding it in, and then exhaling, and then becoming aware of breath coming in and down into your torso, and fill up with breath like you're feeling it happen through your whole torso. And then as you exhale, your body's relaxing with it, right? So now you just turned your attention towards prana. Now yama. What does that mean? We start to become aware of where our life force energy is going. We start to kind of take this inventory of our boundaries. So not everybody translates yama to boundaries. Some people translate it as the great vow. Oh God. What am I making a great vow to? Well, to your divine self, to your highest self, to the you that is full of potential and possibility. So you're making a great vow to your sky self. Your higher self is there somewhere and talking to you in some way. or else you wouldn't be like, what's yoga? So you're making a great vow as the first step of yoga. Not often where people come into it, and some people never yama. But I can tell you that almost all of yoga is like inside of each step. And the first step is yama, and the first step of yama is called ahimsa. And some people translate that as non-harming, some people translate that as gentleness, but I translate that as sensitivity. So becoming sensitive sounds bold and brave as I'm saying it now, because wow, to become more sensitive, it seems a little bit scary, and it is in a way, because you're going to feel more. You're not going to get out of all of it, which I can remember distinctly feeling at the beginning, like, one of these times it's gonna click, and I'm gonna get out of this shit. No. You become more feeling, more sensitive, more engaged, more participatory with your life. And so this sensitivity has to happen, this ahimsa has to happen first towards yourself. Because you can't be sensitive towards others if you're not sensitive towards yourself. You may find that you are critical of others in the same way that you are critical of yourself. We are, this is big news, it's just coming up, so I'm going to say it. We are projection machines. We are, everything that we are seeing outside of us is actually us. And so this feedback loop, and becoming sensitive towards this feedback loop, yoga. Keep going. That's what we're trying to cultivate. We're trying to cultivate a self-correcting system that is sensitive towards its own life and stops doing the same thing over and over again, beating your head against the wall inside the same pattern that is not very much like your higher self at all. You've probably spent time with them, right? So we're trying to find a way to actually take new action in our body. And this is what makes it a therapeutic process in my view, is that there's all sorts of healing that can take place through recognizing and going through your past. Oh gosh, and just knowing, oh, I did that because when I was 7 this happened, and I do this because blah, 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 to have more reasons for why you are the way that you are. And that's good, and it's good to know thyself. That is definitely one of your responsibilities, which why don't we just roll right into those. So boundaries, to sum that up, remember yourself. Be sensitive towards yourself, feel yourself, acknowledge, shit, I have a self. And I have to have boundaries to get to feel and experience what that self is all about. And then you have responsibilities. And your responsibility is to know yourself and sort of own it. Whatever way that you are, just pick it up and hold it and get into right relationship with how you be. So to say 3 of the niyamas, which is where we are in sort of a fast way that you can sort of put in your pocket, is we burn to know ourselves and surrender. This is what's known as Kriya Yoga. So there's seeing yourself as this fire that you tend and that you get to know. And there's a habit that a lot of us have of just feeling like, oh, I want to just know myself, but actually myself is in the way. I have a lot of stuff I need to get to, right? To see the contradiction in that actually the self is always right here. And as soon as you turn towards it and burn to know yourself, and then there's another third part to that. You burn, you want to know yourself, and you surrender to something higher than you. Because if you burn to know yourself and think it's all your responsibility, good luck with that. Unless you're ready to turn it over to a higher power, just leave it alone because it's too hard. It's too hard if you're facing all of it alone. So surrender to something higher than yourself. Your responsibility is to get in right relationship with yourself and therefore have an opportunity to be in a right relationship with your friends. Okay, so boundaries, responsibilities, we postured, we've yama'd, right? So we took an inventory of our prana, where our energy, where our life force energy goes. Let's say, for example, you're always complaining about the in-laws. Always complaining about the in-laws. Always these in-laws ruining your life. And if these in-laws would change, then your life would be good. Wow, if you turn that on yourself and you recognize that your in-laws probably aren't going to change, and probably nothing outside of you is going to change, then you recognize that you're the one that's doing the changing here. Not becoming all powerful so that you can, flip your wand and everyone does it how you think they should, but rather a recognition of that you're asking for change in yourself. And so the thing that you can change is how you interface with the in-laws. Then you leave that group text message. If it's taking too much of your prana. So this is how you create this feedback loop of life force awareness, or managing where your energy goes in a wise way. Okay, so Hatha Yoga is practicing postures and breathing techniques in the light of the yamas and the niyamas. So we're using the postures and the breathing technique as a feedback loop of our own energy levels and how we are today when we come to this interesting rectangle. How am I? Right? This is good, but can actually happen anywhere. Turning towards your own self doesn't require these sticky mats. And as you practice your Hatha Yoga, you'll have moments where at the end of the class in Shavasana, oh, she does a little different. What was that? What? Right? All sorts of interesting experiences in your inner world. And this is what most of my work with clients is about. It's like, I don't know. Turn towards yourself, find out. I don't know. Turn towards yourself, find out. Once again, turn towards yourself, find out. So this ability to inwardly sense yourself. So no longer not knowing what's going on with your heart, or not knowing what's going on with your organs, or not knowing what's going on with your mind. Actually knowing because you're feeling it, you're sensing it. You're taking the 5 senses, which is something that we cultivate the ability to direct and contain in our posture practices. You're taking that ability that you've gained to bind those senses and now directing it towards yourself, to feel yourself deeply. Interoception, we could call it. So we have proprioceptive abilities, right? We can feel where we are in space and move. And if we all started dancing here somehow, we wouldn't run into each other. We have that ability. And we have as fine and trainable of an ability to turn our attention towards our own inner experience and our inner life. And that is called inner sensing. Pratyahara is the name in Sanskrit. And you start to feel your center. So a lot of what we're doing in the posture practices is being able to feel where we are in space. And your teacher's like, no, do your hip like that, your hip like this, not your foot like that, your foot like this. And all these different things. So you're learning to take a cue and make an action. Take a cue, make an action. And so this is stabilizing your attention in a single place and in a single action of doing. So you're cultivating an ability to hold a one-pointed attention, turn it towards yourself, and then to hold that attention on yourself, or to concentrate. So to hold your attention in one place is to be able to concentrate, and that's a whole limb in itself. And as we took that trip from life force awareness to inner sensing, We're moving from the outer limbs, they say, to the inner limbs. And so this is where all the work happens that is transformational, in my opinion. When you start to feel yourself and you start to hold your attention on yourself, or you start to be able to at least hold your concentration on the fact that you're a yoga practitioner and that you're going to keep trying for that. Because as you get more and more focused with your attention and try to meditate more and more, you'll find, I think, how hard it is. How it's nearly impossible it is to hold your attention on your point of focus, no matter what point of focus you choose, even if it's the thing you love most in the world. For some reason, your attention will go elsewhere, and you'll just be bitching about your in-laws in your head, and why? Gotta get back to your prana, yamming your prana before you meet the cushion again tomorrow. Okay, so the ability to hold a single focus, whether that be in our practices as we're holding concentration or doing our work on our computer or whatever it is that you want to hold your attention on. And then also this idea that we could move from a larger aim, that I could hold my concentration on a bigger picture and move in alignment with that larger aim. And then meditation. In the tradition that I studied, meditation means one thing and one thing only, and it's not really on your insight timer, and no one can guide you through it, really. They can kind of, but it is meditation on the names of God. And so repetition on the names of God is meditation. And you may have seen people doing it with beads and flipping the beads and reciting mantras, or as it becomes more and more ingrained, it's happening internally all the time in a certain way. So this remembering of the divine through repetition of mantras, which are words that have been being said for a very, very, very long time, and they connect us to our ancestors, and ancestors in a way that is beyond race. It is the origin of human beingness in these sounds, and we're holding it in our attention, maybe even in our heart. And so this is meditation. And then the last limb is absorption. So as you begin to be held in this meditation, you no longer feel a separateness from you and that divine name that you're chanting. You are absorbed in it. You are in it, and it is in you. Thou art that, my friends. So we've all had experiences of what is called samadhi, and I like to kind of take it out of the realm of impossibility as something we might achieve someday, and bring it into our reality as a moment where you have been fully immersed in what you are doing, absorbed in awe or beauty, or so overcome by the grace of forgiveness or mercy that someone showed you, or your ability to show it for someone else. So I'm 100% in on your life and what you're doing and what's happening now. I have a friend who calls it the Church of Now. Welcome. So, a non-dual contemplation doesn't sound as pretty, but that you are not separate from that which you are seeking, right? It was all right in the beginning. Sensitivity towards yourself. Yoga. Okay, so we're going to practice this embodied through our posture. And I'm going to talk you through how to experience this embodiment in a way where you're maybe have an experience of making that effort. That's not too much and not too little, because that goes with you throughout the process. Even when you're not on these rectangle mats, right? You can feel that you're, maybe having an inappropriate emotional response to something, and that you could soften that now and change your posture now, in that given moment. And that's where all the work that happens on these mats and in these studios comes into your action, comes into the moment where you could say that thing, or you could not say that thing. And that happens through an actual softening of a physical pattern that also has a mental and emotional aspect. So yoga gives us lots of really awesome lists about our mind and about our how our mind functions and how your chitta is vritti and all kinds of things. But the essence is to be able to recognize when you're in a habitual pattern that does not serve you, and to soften into the present moment and to not be such a control freak. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? All that I've said before we practice. Okay, beautiful. Heads this way, lie flat on your back, please, and just clear your mat space. If you guys are comfortable, we can sort of maybe come up and make more room, because we might do a little lateral movement. Miss Millie, can you come up here? You want to bring your mat? You can put it over this one. Awesome. Okay. So, Shavasana, a great pose. A great pose. A good place to start. So, my friends don't always call me when they have something going wrong, because usually my first response is, go for a walk, then lay down, and do your yoga, right? Those two things count, believe it or not, especially if you lay down in a really intentional and conscious way. So the feet being hip width apart, so about like Millie has here, and then your arms being palms up and about 6 inches from your body. So think of it as trying to make sure you have space at your armpits. So feel your armpits and feel spaciousness at the armpits, because we want heat to be able to release through your glands. So this is putting yourself in a good position for your body to function well and to be able to feel your diaphragm. And so as you're breathing just now, bring your attention to your torso and feel how breath is moving through your torso. We all have habitual ways of breathing in the same way that as we have habitual ways of moving and habitual ways of thinking. And so you may have learned some kind of particular way to breathe, and you may sort of easily move into that. Just take note of that. And your breathing muscle is one. So we can identify that so that you can recognize if you're using other muscles to try to breathe and relax those. That is your diaphragm, and it's a sheet that is like a parachute under your rib cage, and when you inhale, it contracts and descends, moves down towards your belly, and that's what creates that action, like your belly is rising. And when you exhale, it relaxes and descends, and that's ascends and presses the air out of your lungs. And so you're just taking your attention to bringing breath in and down. So I'm going to put my hand down here so that you think about breath moving all the way down into my hand. Good. So as if you could bring breath all the way down to your pubic bone and even to your pelvic diaphragm. So you have your breathing diaphragm, and then you have your pelvic diaphragm at the base of your torso. So, of course, anatomically, breath air, oxygen is coming into your lungs. But when we're talking about prana, it's moving in and down into as low as you'll let it into your body, into the torso. And then you can feel breath move up the torso from low. So this idea of breath coming in and down is bringing your attention in and down. Breath plus attention is prana. We could even say prana, and becoming aware of prana is yoga. So breath in and down, low into the belly, moving up the torso, letting it expand the side ribs, and then ultimately move the upper back and shoulders. So thinking about this pathway of breath that moves from low in the belly, into the side ribs, and then wraps around the backside of the heart because the lungs fill backwards. So just now, we're turning our attention inward, we're practicing interoception, and we're trying to concentrate on staying in the sensation of breath coming in and down, and we're becoming aware of how our prana is moving. We're in an asana, a posture, and we're practicing in the light of being sensitive and honest about our experience. And we're burning to know ourselves and surrender again and again. So right here, just by taking this wise posture and breathing in this wise way, you're practicing yoga. So anytime you're feeling like a bad yogi because you haven't done your practice, just remember that if you're turning your attention towards yourself now, you're doing it all at once. So again, these limbs are listed that we just went through, but they're blended and they're happening all at one time when you're absorbed in your present moment experience. So let's see what that might be like. Breath in and down, feeling belly, and then side ribs, and then upper back and shoulders. And then as you exhale, your body gets heavy and you let the earth hold you. Give up your effort to do anything but breathe. There's some amazing things about the breath. It can help modulate or affect your energy levels. So if you're noticing yourself now drifting towards dullness or sleep, add emphasis to the inhale, the sun aspect of the breath. Inhale and fill all the way up with breath, and then hold the breath in. This is a way to energize, enliven, awaken, and bring energy into your system. Exhale, let the exhale be totally passive. This is the lunar part of the breath. This is how we learn to be receptive, how we let go, how we empty all the way and suspend the breath out. This is how we get comfortable being empty. And then once it's time, allow breath to come again in and down. To fill your torso low, side ribs, upper back and shoulders. Smooth transition to a passive exhale that is complete with just the briefest pause at the end of the exhale before you sort of feel this energy fill low to high again. So rather than dominating the breath, think if you can open to receive it. So shifting your perception can happen in a moment if you're open to it. And opening your system requires nervous system regulation. Nervous system regulation requires conscious breathing in and down, moving the diaphragm in a way that soothes the nerve complex at your solar plexus, or the vagus nerve. Yeah, baby. Okay. So this was a long time to be still for. it's hard to be still. So you may have found you drifted towards sleep. That's when you would add emphasis towards your inhale. You may find the mind racing, that you are laying here feeling like you are not okay. Add emphasis to the exhale and suspending the breath out. And in this way, you're sort of allowing your body to find its own balance through tuning to the breath that's most appropriate for that particular moment. So there's oftentimes this idea that pranayama is controlling the breath, right? But we're already really good control freaks. So why don't we open to the breath and let the breath inform you? So I think of this way of breathing as open breathing, receptive breathing. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it, like everything. And the quicker your nervous system response will be, the quicker you'll be able to downshift your nervous system from sympathetic, active, holy shit, it's going down, to passive, rest and digest. I'm okay, I belong. Good. Keep breathing in this way, and then bring your attention to your feet. Feel your feet, sense your feet. And then enliven your feet by activating through the four corners. So if you're not sure what I mean by that, I'm going to be showing on Millie's foot up here. So the four corners of your foot are like pressing down both feet. Good. So you're activating your feet as though you were standing on the ground. And as though my hand was the ground, you're trying to push equally through all four corners, even this big toe here. Good. And then same thing. You're pushing your big toe into here. Good. All right, so this active foot is going to have effects up your leg. So toes should be pointing towards the ceiling, and you might have to look if you're not sure. So toes pointing up, we're going to have specific alignment from here for a little while. So this is where I'm going to be like an Iyengar asana teacher, right? Where I say like this, like this, like this, like this, okay? Because that's good sometimes so that you can learn what it feels like in your body to then be able to, move and flow in a safe way. So feet are active and energized through the four corners. Good, and this activates up the leg. Make sure that your knees stay softly bent and that your butt turns on. So if you haven't actively turned on consciously turned on your butt, do so now. So it's like you're actually like squeezing your feet and your legs and your toes point towards the ceiling. Good, so this is now where our attention before was just on breath. Now we're doing all this stuff too. Can you do all this stuff and breathe? And then as you exhale, can you soften the amount of effort that you're taking to take this action? So it's only the amount of effort that's required to hold your feet and legs in this position. So your butt stays on, your quads stay on, your thighs are on, your calves are on, your feet are on, but you're modulating the amount of effort that you're making to make it happen. So in yoga, we're trying to find stiram and sukham, effortless effort, activation with ease, steadiness and comfort in our posture. Good, so relax now the feet and the legs, let them go completely, let the toes fall out to the side. Good. And then bring your attention again to breath. Notice how your breath changed, what pattern it took. And then bring attention again in and down, belly, side ribs, upper back and shoulders, like the breath is expanding you from low to high. On your next exhale, soften completely. And then on the next inhale, slowly begin to activate through the soles of the feet to again engage through the legs all the way up to the glutes, being engaged on 40 to 60%. And then as you exhale, release that effort. So now search on the inside for this flow of inhaling, activating the feet and legs, and exhaling, relaxing the feet and legs. And each time you take this action, become more and more sensitive towards it. Feel the qualities of your activity in your feet, in your quads, in your butt, and you'll start to sense, oh man, my quads engage 100% right off the bat, and my butt doesn't turn on at all, until I take conscious action. So until I engage through the feet and really intentionally get my quads to engage slowly and then turn on the glutes intentionally with them. And then as you exhale, notice, do you hold residual tension between activation and relaxation? So feet relax and then engage as you inhale. Good. So now you're trying to see, do you hold tension between repetitions or can you relax completely? So this is the kind of thing that we're trying to be able to hold our attention and concentration on so that we can begin to make the actual physical patterns of the body conscious. So, man, I'm really overdoing it with the quads and my butt is totally off. What does that say about me? I don't know. Doesn't really matter as long as you get your quads to relax and get your butt to engage, because that will help support the longevity of your joints mostly, so that then you can keep being in awe and absorption for longer. Good. A few more times. What do you notice? This is what makes yoga practice advance. The more you notice, the more you feel about what you're doing. Are you trying to do this with your arms and your shoulders for some reason? Those can be totally relaxed. The face can be totally relaxed. Only the amount of effort necessary. And I kind of summarize this by calling it an effortless effort. So take your next engagement to find an effortless effort through the feet and legs to the glutes, and then it's an amount of effort that if I all of a sudden left and went to the bathroom and just left you guys here, you could sustain it and you'd be okay with that. So find the amount of effort that you can hold and hold it on your next inhale. Good. And then take a similar engagement through the palms as we took through the feet. So you can turn the palms to face down now and bring the palms in contact with the ground. And engage through the four corners of the palms, actively down while holding your legs with this gentle activation. And so this activates up the arm and into the shoulder in a way, so broaden across the back, if you need to feel as much surface area of the upper back in contact with the floor. Feet are still engaged, breath is coming in and down in that way that I coached you through at the beginning. So this is where you'll start to experience your mind and intention wander and distraction happens. That's not the important part. The important part is that you take my next cue and come back, and you do so with gentleness towards yourself. So the back is broad, the feet are engaged, breath is in and down. And now with that back engaged, really come in contact with the end of the inhale. Feel the end of the inhale expand the upper back. Good. And now with this engagement of the feet and the legs and the glutes, we'll bring attention to the core of the body. So feel on your next exhale, squeezing all the air out and kind of squeezing your abdomen towards the center. And then as you inhale, keep a tone in the low belly and a tone in the upper belly so that there's this sort of gentle holding at the core. Good, and then inhale in and really bring breath into the side bodies and into the back. So there's a gentle tone between the hip bones and activation of the upper abdomen to bring the rib cage and the hip bones into alignment or to contain the core. And then breathe in and down into that contained core. Really good. Okay. Then bring the lowest point possible on your head to touch the floor. So if you find that your chin is moving towards the ceiling, tuck the chin towards the center of the throat and extend the back of the neck long so the lowest point possible on your head is what's touching the floor. Good. So in a yoga class, you're not going to get quite all of this detailed instruction, right? But I want you to think about packaging it up so you can take it with you, and any posture that you're in holds this subtle engagement from feet to crown to fingertips. And you breathe into that space of containment. and expand the lungs to fill back behind the heart. Good, and then now we've directed the body, now bring your attention to your sense of smell as you bring the next breath in and down. Consciously smell. The smell is associated with earth and is grounding, so when you find that you need extra grounding of your attention, make conscious your sense of smell. Here we have a little incense going. See if you can pick it up on your nose. And hold this gentle activation of your whole body. Keep the whole thing occupied with your attention as you smell in and down. And then bring attention to your sense of taste. And bring your tongue flat and broad to the roof of the mouth. And behind the top row of teeth. And the teeth are slightly parted and the lips touch. And then give you an interesting thing to test and see how it feels. With the tongue in contact with the roof of the mouth, as though you had a hard candy on the roof of the mouth, add a gentle, consistent sucking action between your tongue and the roof of the mouth. This is a mouth containment known as Jiva Bandha, and it's important because it helps connect to those energetic channels that allow breath to move smoothly. And so by mimicking this mouth position of breastfeeding at the mouth, we open up both nostrils and allow more prana to come in and down. So as you get more comfortable with it, it's just a subtle, consistent vacuum in the mouth. Good, so another one of the many things that we're holding in our concentration: feet, hands, breath in and down, smell, taste, mouth action. Now bring your attention to your eyes and your sense of sight. Have all of that in your awareness and also see the backs of your eyelids or the ceiling. Nothing we're doing is outside of this present moment. You're seeing this ceiling or the back of your eyelids now. And then making as little effort as possible, contain your eyes. So you could take a gentle action in and up. So no longer letting the eyes move around, but holding them still and contained. And continuing with the mouth action and the breath, and then subtle, effortless activity in the body. So as you hold all of this in your awareness, you may feel areas of your body fatiguing, or areas of your body that have turned off and stopped activating, maybe the butt. So re-engage that effort with the senses in your awareness. Next, feeling your sense of touch. So feeling the floor underneath you, the clothes on you, and then also the touch of breath coming in and down. It's a lot. Good, and then lastly, connect to your sense of hearing. To hear my voice, your own breath, the sounds of the room. An open sense of hearing. So this whole body sensing happening now. Yoga. Breath coming in and down. And then as you start to get more and more practiced in this, you'll notice what in your life takes your breath away, or what makes it so you can't breathe. You'll be doing pranayama all of the time because you attend to the breath and serve the breath. On your next exhale, release all effort, but stay connected to your senses. Take a few big breaths, just being in you. you notice a thought or an emotion arise, just hold this attention on your senses and become the witness of that thought or that feeling, but don't move with it. Don't let it move you. Also, don't suppress it. Let it be there. So in this way, we're learning to stabilize our attention, and in certain moments, it's more uncomfortable than others. Sometimes it feels great, sometimes it feels terrible. What's the difference? Either way, this practice is a way of stabilizing yourself so that you can ride the waves of emotion that will arise. But in your yoga, you're stable and inside of it, and it is inside of you. So however it is that you be is welcomed, and you become this field of gentleness that welcomes yourself. Good. On your next inhale, take action in all those ways that we've learned. Activate through the feet and through the hands, and do it really gently, more like you were activating with a dimmer switch than with an on-off switch, right? So you're trying to take an inhale to dim the lights on just right to the perfect amount, and then on your exhale, you're releasing them, dimming them back down smoothly. And then on your next inhale, again, activating palms and feet, engaging to effortless effort, noticing what parts of you just have to try too hard. Is that upper back just a gripping for no reason? Is the quads or the glutes doing that thing they do? How can you stabilize it with your attention? Good. Next time you inhale and activate through the soles of your feet, hold that there, and then bring attention to your core activation again. And on your inhale, lift and float the right leg, and on your exhale, lower it. And then inhale, lift and float the left leg. So as you're lifting, be sure that you don't lock out at the knees and that you don't transfer effort into the upper back. Be sure that the work to lift the leg is happening from the front of the hip. Good, and you're kind of striving to lift the leg maybe 6 inches, slow and smooth, without using the upper back, but really focusing on the low core working. And maintaining that quality to this action of effortless effort. So we start to bring our attention down to the smallest movement in our practice so that we can start to feel the pattern of action taking place throughout our fascial system. So an active foot lifting shouldn't engage the back, the upper back. All the work should come from a contained core in the back and stay really broad and the hands grounded for stabilization, but not to do the work. Good. What do you notice? Do you drift towards dullness or sleep, that whole fuck it thing? Or do you move towards overdoing it, obsessing about if you're doing it right? Or how many repetitions you can get in? Okay, these are the things that you're coming to notice about yourself as you're practicing. So the hatha provides the bind and the containment for the study of self to happen. Okay, next time you set down your left foot, let your feet relax and shake out the toes and shake out the legs and shake out the whole body. Good. Good, and then let yourself settle. Right, so much info available to you now, and what my job as a yoga teacher is to provide cues that direct your attention and move your body into certain shapes that inform you about the nature of yourself, how you are in posture and in mind and in emotion. Okay, Up next, bring your feet flat to the floor, knees together, feet together. Your heels are far enough back towards your bum that your shins are straight up and down. So you'll feel my hand there when you reach the place. Keep coming back. Good. So, and your balls of your feet touch and your heels touch, and your knees are together. Very specific, right? Palms ground in the same way that they did before, and there's still space at the armpits, right? So those pits can breathe. And the lowest point possible on the head is touching the floor. The mouth position is in place. You're gently contained at the eyes. If the eyes are open, they're fixed on a single point. If they're closed, you're looking gently in and gently up. Maintaining the containment at the low ribs and the front hip bones. So not turning this into a back bending bridge, but rather keeping it a hip bridge. On an inhale, press through your feet and lift the hips up. And on an exhale, lower. Good. Keep moving in this way. Keeping the knees together, keeping the feet together. Activating through the foot in the same way that we did grounding the four corners of the foot. You could think about lifting the toes to activate the arch of the foot even more. So next time you come down, lift the toes, good. And when you lift the toes, notice that the knees want to splay apart and really work to keep those together. Good. So on your exhale, let's set yourself down completely. So think about each repetition of inhale lifting and exhale lowering as a wave. We even sometimes in yoga teacher training call these ulolas, or a wave of movement. So it's like your inhale is lifting you and your exhale is lowering you, and you're not sure who started it first, the breath or the body. They started so simultaneously that they become one thing. Another way to get that yoga. So if it feels like it's getting too easy, where has your attention gone, or how has your body shifted in a way to compensate? So has your low ribs started to jet forward, or has your upper back ripped up to start to do some of the work? Or have you let go from the low belly? Can you keep lifting your front hip bones? This next repetition, as you press through the feet, really feel that the glutes engage first, then the hamstrings, and then as you come up, hold up. And really lift your front hip bones, and then drive your knees away like you were pressing your knees away so your thigh was as long as possible. And keep lifting the front hip bones internally, and now you'll change the feeling of the stretch completely. Now it's a big stretch up the quads and the front hips, lots of butt work, and keep those knees together. Oh my goodness. Well, how is your breath doing? In and down. And allowing your breath to be your guide, come out whenever you lose form or you can't breathe anymore. And see if you can do it gracefully on an exhale. And then after you come down, heel toe your feet out wide at the edge of your mat and let your knees fall in towards each other. And then let both knees drop to the right. And really press through the top knee and stretch the front thigh and front hip. And then on your next inhale, come back to center, and on your next exhale, drop to the other side. And in the same way as we did with the bridge, map the movement to breath, really as smooth as you can. This is a support for your attention, so that you don't go back and thinking about the in-laws, right? You stay in your present moment experience. Inhaling, the knees come up. Exhaling, they come down, and then at the end of the exhale, maybe pressing through the feet to add to the stretch in the pelvis in some way. And then you can incorporate your head turning the opposite direction as your knees are going, feeling your head heavy on the floor, and then syncing everything up with the breath, making it as smooth as you can. So this way of moving is what I understand flow to be. A lot of times, if you go to a class, there will be a directing of breath that's inhale and exhale. And inhale, do this, exhale, do that. So do your best within that to make sure that you're staying with your flow of breath. And That flow of breath is the one that we established at the beginning. In and down, that feels low in the pelvis and expands the torso and the sides and the back. So no matter the style of yoga class that you're in, your inner orientation can be this way that I'm explaining things. This effortless effort can start to guide how much is too much for you in posture. So like when we did that bridge and you found that your back started to grip up and you started not to be able to have the same breath happening, see if you can come out of the bridge a little bit and lessen the strain that you're putting on yourself. Next time your knees are down to the left, hold there, take several breaths, and bring your right arm up and across in the opposite direction that your top knee is pointing. So you're kind of adding to the stretch by reaching through the arm, good, and then pressing the knee away. So we're looking for a stretch all the way kind of in the abdomen by how much you're reaching, almost like you're trying to grab something overhead to hang on with your right arm. Good. And breathe in and down into the feeling of stretch in the hip or in the side body. And it's on the exhale that you'll actually feel a change happen in the stretch. So in this case, your top knee may drop closer towards the floor as you exhale. When there's some releases happen through the quad or the psoas or the abdomen. So watch for that. Each time your breath happens, inhale, feel the sensation of stretch present with you now. And as you exhale, what about the tension can you release consciously and see what changes about your body's shape. And leave that right hand in that position, and on your next inhale, switch side with your leg and bring the left arm up and reach up and across the other way. Good, so your right arm can kind of just be out of the way of your legs, and then your left arm's up overhead and you're reaching up and reaching the knee out and kind of trying to contain at the ribs there and see if you can get a stretch into there by how you're pressing through your foot and reaching through your arm. And then on your exhales, you're softening it. So if you're in this stretch and when you exhale, you can't find anywhere to soften or nothing feels like it's changing, it might be that you're stretching yourself too hard, that you can maybe back off the effort of stretch in a way that would allow your nervous system to actually respond to the way that you're breathing. Because your nervous system has to work with your musculoskeletal system to actually change the structure of your tissue. And then so the breath matters, which is why really as you learn these concepts, you can start to take these principles of yoga as just how you are in your body. If you're at the Orange Theory of Fitness, you're still doing this same way of being inside your body. If you're playing volleyball somewhere, you're still holding in between serves this effortless action in your body, and then letting more effort happen as it happens. Okay, bring the arm to the side and the knees to the center, and move so slow that you feel every part of how you're moving. Every lift, and then as you straighten your legs, feel how good it feels to kind of stretch out long in that way. Organize your back in a comfortable way. And so again, something that often happens in our yoga practice is not a lot of focus on the transition. And my invitation to you is to pay the most attention to the transition. The place between the poses is where all the juice is. So inhale in and down and let your body totally relax here. So not taking any of the tension or the effort into the next pose that we do, but leaving all of it here, become present again. How do you become present? You come to your senses. You're aware of your sight, your smell, your taste, your touch, and your hearing. This is what makes yoga a somatic experience of the senses. And so I do a lot of directing of the senses when I'm guiding practices, because that's what's going to ground attention in present moment. So if you're in your yoga class and you're in your head and you want to come back and be present, connect to that mouth position that I mentioned and your sense of taste. Good. All right, and so taking what I said seriously and not forgetting the transitions. Feel yourself as you come into a standing posture in the most easeful way possible. So notice if you are like on it, move fast, or if you're like, oh my God, we have to get up. See, these are what the times where you learn about you and how you be. Come to the front of your mat, the middle of your mat. Just stand somewhere on your mat. And then we'll look down at your feet and do the same thing that we did in line, making sure that the feet are pointed straight. You can think of the inside edge of your feet being parallel to one another, or as if you had a walk between your feet. You really want to be sure that the toes aren't any of the myriad of ways that they can be, right? Because if the toes are in a different position, my hips in a different position. So the feet are the foundation of every single pose. And so being sure and giving yourself this feedback of looking at your feet and being sure that there's a solid foundation where all four corners are grounded into the ground, and then lift your toes up like we did. This action of lifting your toes up may cause you to lock your knees, keep the knees soft, but what it does is it lifts the arch of the foot. Good. Keep your ball of your foot down as we lift the toes. Good. So this is grounding and activating all the way up the leg. So a lot of times people are coming to yoga, or to me, for pelvic floor work. And they're surprised when I'm like, well, let's see them feet, sister. Because so much of the activation of the pelvic floor and the pelvis is initiated and engaged by the feet. So if there's certain habits in the feet, it's going to affect the pelvis and the hips. So we start there, lifting and grounding the four corners, and then see if you can just ground the big toe. So look down, see the truth of it. Just ground the big toe, good, and then broaden to the outside edge of the foot and see if you can ground the pinky toe but keep the other toes up. True. This is like plugging into earth, guys. Activating your feet in this way creates such a different experience in your posture. And so even if you're not being guided in the class that you're in to engage your feet to this level, I can tell you, just look at my feet. You can see the difference between an active and engaged foot and a non-active and engaged foot. What happened to my arches? What happened to my knees? What happened to my hips? Engaged versus not engaged, right? So I'm still in Tadasana. I'm still a good yogi here, right? But I'm not engaged in the same way with the posture as I am whenever I'm actively plugging my feet down. Okay, and then comes this relationship with the locked knees and the pelvis and the low belly. So something, right, what that happens is knees fall in, arches fall in. So our remedy for that is this Pada Bandha, or the foot activation that brings hips, knees, and ankles all into alignment. And then there's an action of the hips where you're lifting the front hip bones and turning on the butt. And so this is going to balance the pelvis front to back. So your butt is on to effortless effort, and the low belly is engaged, and the four corners of the feet are grounding down. And then often these things happen where it's like, for some reason, I'm doing it with my hands, right? So the upper body is engaged but relaxed. So you could have the hands back and mimic that action of the hands being grounded into the floor, or forward and broaden across the back, thinking of the hands being active, energized. So glutes are gently on, and this is a place where a lot of people kind of habituate misalignments that ultimately lead to back pain or different things that happen, is the pelvis rib cage relationship, right? So you can see I have this pelvic diaphragm, right, that's here, and I have this breathing diaphragm. And what I wanted to do is bring those two diaphragms into relationship so that they create a feedback loop with one another. Good. And this feels powerful. Right? So in and down to soften any over-efforting happening inside of this. So it's like we're doing it, figuring it out, feeling it, and then making it look easy. Good. And then the last piece is to remember to keep your head on your shoulders. We do a position called a ramp. So the chin moves towards the center of the throat. It's like there's someone lifting you up from the back of your crown to create this lightness in posture. This upward movement happening at the same time as the downward action. Good. Okay. So now find effortless effort inside of that.
Can we put the middle toes down again? Or they're supposed to be up the whole time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my.
Now you know where your work is. Don't dare. Good. So you can't, if it feels like it's distracting, you can let the toes lower, but you don't want to lose the engagement of the whole foot. I think it's a good time to just mention that there's all sorts of very particular ways that different teachers will give you to do things. You know, some people will say feet are supposed to be just like this. Some people are supposed to say, you know, you do your nani shoulder like this, and some people do it like this, or whatever. All these different kind of particularities of technique, just don't let them trip you up. Feel what feels right for you internally and how you can hold that effortless effort in your engagement. Okay, so something that happens over and over again is the pelvis drops and the butt turns off. So remembering this again and again, and the rib cage, the upper activation of the transverse, you could feel it happening through an exhale through the mouth, like press the breath out. Good, and then broaden the shoulders. And then you're kind of trying to find the right position to where you're not too far back with the shoulders that then you're overextended through the ribs, and you're not pressing the ribs so far back that your shoulders scoot forward. You're right in the center. And then there's this downward engagement of the feet and this upward engagement through the back of the crown. So this lightness. Good. And then fix the eyes and remember the mouth position. Tongue flat and broad on the roof of the mouth. And breathe in and down and find effortless effort here. I'm going to come around and just give a few micro adjustments. So we're starting at really solid place. Breath in and down, soft and silent, fills the belly, then the side ribs, and the upper back and shoulders. Good. Before anything else, open your eyes or look down at your feet. See what your shape your feet have taken. Did they go back to a dropped arch or to a lifted big toe? So much information, I can't emphasize enough. to attend your feet in your yoga practice. Okay, bring a hand to the low belly and a hand to the chest. And breathe in and down into the lower hand and feel it expand up into the upper hand. So rooted, grounded to the earth through the soles of your feet. And also uplifted from the back of your crown. And then everything in between is aligned in a way that just by standing here and breathing in and down and expanding the breath through the upper back, you're getting stronger. Not by over-efforting, but by being well aligned. You can think of this these hands here as a feedback loop of how you might guide your spine in your asana practices. So we're doing all of the postures for the queen, who is your spine. And so keeping the spine and holding this upper back and head engagement is going to be something you really want to focus on quite a lot in your practice. Because if the head's leading the way and you're doing your yoga in the same way as you do your little everyday life, nothing will change. So finding the places that as we're holding here are getting fatigued, are getting, or turning off, and really adding extra emphasis or focus there. And then the role of a good yoga teacher is to help you point out what you can't see, because it's difficult to feel the areas that we can't feel. That's why we can't feel them. So gentle guidance into areas of stagnant energy or blocked energy is sort of what the guidance of a yoga teacher is about. So gentle touch that's suggestive of where your attention might go, or feedbacks of how you might take action in a different way, so that you're learning how to take the action in your body, something that is a sign or mark of a good teacher. Good. So this is aligned action in the body, and it doesn't just happen, right, on these squares, rectangles that we do these practices on, but in your everyday life. So anytime you find life's got you down, simply adjusting your posture, feeling and engaging in your feet, and again, you're inside of your practice. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Seems like you're all feeling yourself pretty good to me. I'm glad to see it. So the part about the spine and how you might honor the spine as you move into more complex postures. So say this alignment that we took is moving into a warrior two. You wouldn't want to take you might get incentivized by the enthusiasm around you, right, to be a champion warrior, But look at my spine here and the sacrifice, in a way, of my spine versus an honest warrior that maintains the integrity of spine first and then deals with the ego that wants to be deeper in a pose and instead chooses stability and alignment. And in that way, using the guidance of your breath and your spine, you become a self-modifier through what you're finding on your mat, through how you're feeling in each pose. Does anybody have any questions about that, or how you might kind of take all of this into your vinyasa flow, into your Kundalini class, whatever it is? All of these same principles apply, and what I find is that it actually builds heat faster. Like the same pose I can hold for half as long because so much more awareness and attention is required. Or if I'm in a Kundalini class, I'm sure to hold my containments. What these are called are bandha, in another way. I showed you in action how to get into Bandha, but you may hear people say, okay, Mula Bandha. Well, but nope. Down with the feet is actually how you're going to get that lift of that base Bandha. Or Jalandhara Bandha, that's the action of the head, moving back into place. Or Uddiyana Bandha, coming back into this foundational alignment, and then being able to hold that, and then you put breath into that container. Ooh, watch out. Something new might happen because of all the energy that you're forming in this aligned way. Let me check my time. Okay, that's the end of class. I'd like to end with a chant or a prayer. So let's take a seat together. So this is what I've heard called the student-teacher prayer, but I say it most times before I'm teaching or after I'm teaching. Not necessarily every asana class, but whenever I'm really going to be talking about the spirit of yoga, because I think it holds the spirit of yoga inside of it. And it being called the student-teacher prayer is also informative, because there's so much inside that relationship that is a part of the process of yoga. You actually need someone to see you because you can't see yourself. So someone who is stable and trustworthy and able to pay attention to say, it seems like you're saying you want this, but you're actually doing this, right? It seems like you're saying you want hip mobility, but every time we move into a posture that's about hip mobility, instead you're moving your knee, or instead you're arching your back. So let's really target in on how we can get to that thing that you're saying you want. And that can also apply to life and your life direction. Because as you can see from our little brush over the 8 limbs, it really becomes a whole way of living, a whole way of being, how you are in your embodied experience. So the prayer translates, may we be protected and may we be nourished. May we become strong together as we study ourselves and study things associated with the light. And may we forgive easily, or may there be no ill will among us. Because as we start to study ourselves and study our patterns, and hopefully in a circle where everyone feels really comfortable to share, well, you're going to have feelings about things and conflicts will happen. And part of what it's about to be in a yoga community is for there to be this spirit of forgiveness. That we realize that everybody's coming with their karma shaya or their sack of shit. Right? Their particular dysfunction, and we're all trying to heal, and so there being a welcoming of each other and a forgiveness towards each other is sort of a part of what makes a sangha or a yoga community. That's where progress can happen, where we can start to see ourselves better and feel a sense of belonging. All right, the prayer. So I welcome you just to hold your attention on your heart, and you can kind of think about placing your arms wherever your back is most comfortable. So wherever you're able to just kind of keep attention at your heart in a relaxed way. So any of those ways are good. And if you know it, please be welcome to sing along. Sahanavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karuvavahe, Tejasvinavadhitama Namastu. Ma Ganesha Wakle. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, peace, peace, peace. Bring your hands to your heart in some way that feels meaningful and comfortable to you. And often at the end of class, you will hear Namaste.
Namaste.
This is often translated, the divinity and light in me sees, acknowledges, appreciates, and has affection for the divinity and light in each of you. Which is a little long-winded for me, I'll be honest. I just say, I see you. I see you. Thank you all for practicing and taking good care. Welcome to yoga.
Thank you so much.